Hello, in this video I'm going to talk about my recommended setup for the Arcanist Herald of the Tome Assassination skill line from the Nightblade and the Adri Spear from the Templar subclass beam build, and what I recommend for dungeons and trials, and how you can set this up in the Wizard's wardrobe to optimize the different fights that you're going to go into. So I'm going to start off with a simple dungeon setup here. And as you can see here, for add pulls or trash, whatever you want to call it, I have the Deadly Strike set paired with the perfected Ansuul's Torment. This setup is for if you have no healer. So it's got the Ring of the Pale Order. This is kind of more of if you're going to solo a dungeon or maybe two-man something, then you want to have a little bit of sustaining survivability there. I've got another one here that you can equip that is just the standard Velothi setup. So we'll focus on that one going forward, since this is probably going to be the most optimal for most situations. So here you can see I've got my skills set up and the Deadly Ansuul with Velothi. And then the back bar, I use the Inferno staff for add pulls because it has a big AoE area. Add pulls tend to die pretty quick anyways, so it's nice to get the big AoE there instead of the sword. The sword doesn't have quite as big of an area. Just to show you what I'm talking about here. The two-handed sword has a 5-meter radius, whereas if you put down a blockade, it's a 12 by 18 meter square. So that's a much larger area that you can cover for add pulls. They both last for 15 seconds, but it's just a lot bigger area for killing the add pulls with the the blockade, excuse me. So this is what I recommend for trash, for dungeons and trials. I kind of set up very similar, except for a few small changes that I do in trials compared to here. For the green tree, you can do whatever you want, but for the blue tree, I'm going to talk about one change that I would recommend you put in your wizard's wardrobe setups for trash, and that is the Occult Overload slottable here. If you're in a trial and all the DPS slot this, then this is going to proc pretty much all the time. Whenever you kill an ad, they will explode with oblivion damage in a 4-meter radius, and they will apply a status effect to whoever they hit. So there's an easy way there to help mow down mobs and burn through stuff. You can easily set this up for all your trash pulls, and this will speed things up quite a bit. Another change that I do for in dungeons is I will slot the Bloody Renewal for dungeons, and then in trials I don't really put this on that much because it usually will not proc as much in trials. For trials, I always have this slotted because it is the DPS job for rezzing, and then I'll usually keep this on for movement speed to keep things moving quickly through add pulls and trash fights. So that is what I would recommend setting up for your trash setup. For your boss fights, I have Null Arca and the Tideborn set up here, with the back bar Greatsword from the Maelstrom Arena. A couple of changes that I do for boss fights is I will change the Occult Overload to Fighting Finesse to make sure that I am at the critical damage cap for the fight. And then I obviously have to change my back bar skill from Blockade to the Stampede. I pretty much don't change the build that much other than that because it's nice to have everything nice and neat and simple. This build is very, very effective. Anybody who's going to talk about slotting this skill or that skill and it's going to be a damage loss. No, I can hit well over 100,000 DPS in the dungeon on a regular basis. I've done it now for a couple of weeks. If you're worried about a damage loss in that environment, I'm sorry, go back 6 months and tell me that again. This is just not the case. This is fully effective, easy to use. Highly recommend you pairing Null Arca with Tideborn for boss fights, so that you're buffing your direct damage. One thing you might change with this setup right here for your blue CP, you might, instead of fighting Finesse, you could put the single target node in your blue tree, because Null Arca will be buffed by this right here, the Deadly Aim. So that would increase the Null Arca a little bit more. The Flail and the Beam are not going to get buffed like this because they're buffed by area of effect here. So it just depends on what you want to increase. Wrathful Strikes is really good because it will buff your entire your spells. And then also there is Untamed Aggression, which basically just gives you more weapon damage, and it will increase your entire build because you're giving 150 more weapon and spell damage there. So to get into the Wizard's Wardrobe setups, I've done, I think, 3 or 4 videos now on that add-on. If you're interested in how to set this up, please check out my YouTube channel. I will link all of my Wizard's Wardrobe videos in the description below if you're interested in that. But I wanted to just cover a different role and how I set up optimizing for specific things. I know I did a tank video showing how you can set up for trash fights and boss fights. I wanted to kind of do a quick DPS run through, and you can set these up also for trials. You just go in here for trials, and then you go to your setup here, and then you can look. It's pretty much the same. It's got the Deadly Ansuul, and then for boss fights, it's the Tideborn Null Arca set with the same setups, basically. There are certain fights that you might want to look at. Just kind of a quick, for instance, the last boss in Sail Reef. I tend to not recommend using the Maelstrom Greatsword. I have not updated this yet, so it still has that on there, but that's something that you can change so that think about certain fights where you don't want to go slamming into the boss with a Greatsword charge. It might be better to automatically just have the staff there instead. Certain fights like that can be kind of difficult unless you know how to handle it. You can still use this, but it takes some practice on how to use it so you don't go flying into the water there. So it's not, I'm not saying never use it, but it does take some technique to get used to. So just be aware of that. But that's pretty much my setup recommendation. If you're running the beam build, this should be very popular and common. It hits really hard, has very good cleave damage, and it's easy to run. It's about a 1.5 bar setup. So if you're coming off of a 1 bar sorcerer and you're trying to find something to get into vet content, this right here is the ticket for you. You definitely want to look into the beam build. Again, I will put the description in the, or excuse me, a link in the description of the beam build videos that I've done covering this. I will also link my DPS playlist if you're interested in that for all my DPS content. But this right here is my recommendation on how you set up your trash fights and your boss fights. You can set up for AoE damage here, and then single target killers like Null Arca are going to really boost your trial performance, as well as help your team get some better times and some huge DPS numbers. I'm using the TG group tracker here, as you can see. I've seen this tick up about 150,000 in some ad pulls with this build. It's very effective. and I am not using anything crazy. I'm using 4 skills on the front bar and 3 on the back. So it's literally that simple, especially when you're using this mark target before the ad pull and find out the runt of the litter, kill him first, and then you got 10 seconds of Major Berserk for the entire pull. That really helps elevate your damage for the fight. And then of course I've got this on for speed element, and then this gives you passive weapon damage. So you're basically running these 3 and these 4. You're probably going to have the ad pull dead within about 10 seconds, maybe a little longer. Most ad pulls don't last for very long. So you're only going to need to hit 7 different skills there. So just keep that in mind. That's going to do it for this video. I just wanted to do a quick overview on how to set up for ad pulls and trash fights for dungeons and trials. Keep in mind, when you can do these things, you can set them up to really, really optimize individual situations and hyper-focus stuff, because now the Wizard's Wardrobe is here. You can do things that would often take you, maybe it took you 3-4 minutes to do it after every ad pull or trash fight if you wanted to, and that would end up making your trial or dungeon last way longer. Now you can just set this up beforehand, have it switch on the fly, and up your game that much more. So take a look at that. If you're looking on how to do the Wizard's Wardrobe, check out my videos. I show you how to set these up. It's very simple. You basically just want to equip your gear, all your setups and your CP and everything. Come in here and save your build, and then change the page to whatever you're wanting to do. Again, I've got several videos on this to walk you through that. But thank you for watching. If you thought this was helpful or interesting, please check out my YouTube channel for more content. I have all my stuff organized in my created playlists, so check it out. If you like this, go see if there's anything else you want to watch. Thanks again, and I'll see you in another video. Bye.